Welcome to the Aroma Paths Podcast. We are your scent casters, Jennifer Pressimone and Sharon Falsetto Chapman, bringing over 40 years of combined experience. Aromatics are our passion, and we'll be sharing holistic tips, herbal remedies, and essential oils in a simple way to make your health journey easier. Let's start our walk together.
Aroma Paths stepping fresh through the mist. Essential oils lifting vibes, feel the twist.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to February's podcast, which is Fragrant February. A lot of people are very sensitive to chemical fragrances. And so we wanted to talk a little bit more about botanical fragrances and the benefits of that, and also about layering fragrances. But first of all, I want to welcome to the show my fellow scent caster, Jennifer. How are you doing, Jennifer?
Hi, Sharon. I am doing great, and I'm real excited about this episode because I think people love fragrance, and we know everybody loves scents, but more importantly, over the past few years, people have really recognized the importance of fragrance, and we want to introduce the deeper understanding, and really the definition of functional fragrances. Because when you understand their function, then you're better able to match them up to your mood, customize them to what you need, but then also layer in. I am a huge aromatherapy blender, and I use layered methods. I've used them for 20 years. So I'm so excited that we're going to be talking about that today.
I love the term functional fragrance. It really shouldn't be a term in my names because fragrance should be functional. But over the years, it's gone from when people started out, they used the plants and the botanicals to make fragrances. And then the synthetics got introduced and people just got used to that one fragrance. And it was the overpowering fragrance. And we all had to smell like everybody else. And it wasn't just that. They really didn't have a function beyond that, kind of masking aromas and making it smell nice, I should say. uh, and so with functional fragrance, it's really what it's all about, the work that we do, what aromatherapy is. But it's something that I've kind of skewing towards now, botanical fragrances, is, wearing fragrance that you can resonate with, but it's also functional. It does double duty in a way. And I'm excited to share my journey with that, from going from aromatherapy into the world of perfumery, because it kind of helped me, but it also gave me an insight into how perfumers think without the aromatherapy layer into that. So I'm going to be sharing some kind of experiences on that and some tips on that. But layering, I think I probably do layering. I'm excited to hear what you've got to say on that, Jennifer, and whether it's what I'm thinking it is or whether it's something different.
And there's a couple different ways of layering. Just to clarify with the functional aspects, the functional botanical fragrances, we know that when you go to the store, think about it. Whenever you go, what's one of the first things you do is you pick it up and smell it, whether it's a food or you're picking up a candle. Of course, you're going to be choosing it by the fragrance of that. But what a lot of people don't know is using synthetic chemicals, using man-made molecules that are not necessarily from, they may smell good. You may relax. It may calm your energy, but it's doing an opposite effect physiologically. And I learned that the hard way. When I got really sick, one of the first things I did when I took a sabbatical from my job was come home and clean my whole house with chemicals. I got even more sick. And I mean, it really put me in a very bad state, almost had to be rushed to the hospital because it was so overwhelming to my body. And that's when I learned, oh, not all scents are great. Now, you may get that psychological effect, but what it's doing when you're smelling that is most people put their perfumes on their neck. They put that on their body, and it's congesting to the body. It congests the lymphatic system. And when your lymphatic system gets congested, it creates more stagnation on an emotional level, on a mental level. So thoughts, get different. Mindset is different. Emotional blocks may come up more. And when we're talking about that functional botanical fragrances, we're using fragrance to give you a health benefit. It's going to help keep the lymphatic system moving, not get it stuck, not keep it stuck. We're going to support the body based on what we need. Now, when you layer, you can do two types of layerings. You're bringing in different scent categories and you're pairing them. You're doing like scent pairing, just like you would pair wine with crackers and with certain foods to create a palette or an experience. You're doing the same thing with fragrance, with essential oils, right? With the scent, we're going to pair them together and we're going to layer in their effect. I remember when our last episode, we were talking about lime and spearmint together. Now, if you do them in equal parts, you're going to get one type of effect. But if you were to do 2 drops lime, 1 drop of spearmint, you're going to get a different effect. And then if you do 2 drops of spearmint with 1 drop lime that twist it just a little bit to give it a little bit of the sweetness, it causes something that's different. And so we have that type of layering or pairing. But then also in your layered blending for emotional healing, we're going to blend, you're going to take a formula and you're going to blend pieces of that formula, different ingredients. You're going to pair different ingredients and blend them on different days. So day 1, we're going to have this list of ingredients, and you're going to take a few and put those together for day 1. And then on day 2, you're going to take a different set and put it on day 2. And there's a 24-hour period in between them. And when you do that, it's this layered blend that really goes deep for emotional healing. And so that was a lot of information, but I just wanted to get us all on the same page to make sure Sharon and I, this is something very passionate to Sharon and I, is making sure we both have had health challenges and we've had to overcome them and manage them and thrive through them. And in that, we've created our own aromatherapy businesses in doing that. Me for emotional healing, and Sharon has really, she is so gifted at pairing them together and putting these blends together for her perfume line, for her fragrance line. But we wanted to clarify, when we're talking fragrance, it's not the chemical fragrances, it's true botanical, plant-based fragrances that are creating a physiological and psychological function within our mind and our body.
Thank you for that, Jennifer. And I think you've got a gift in intuitively getting fragrances together, matching them with the different person. But the layering that I'm just going to go back to the layering that you were talking about. The layering that you were talking about in the beginning, where you put 2 drops of this, 1 drop of this, and then maybe it might be 3 drops of this or 2 drops of that to make it skew a different way. That's exactly the kind of method that I use in making my botanical fragrances and putting them all together like that. So I think it was just the layering name that I haven't given a name to it, but I think it's the same kind of process that I use for that. The second method that you described was pretty interesting. There's another thing that I've heard about in perfumery circles with layering is that you just do like a single note perfume for roses, for example. So then you put that on, and then you might do a single note citrus, and then you would put that on top of that on your skin. So it's a different kind of layering to what you're saying with the different blends within 24 hours and difference between them. So layering can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It's important that we understand that. And I've had a similar experience with the synthetics, even when I first got into aromatherapy, I was still wearing synthetic fragrances, and it was like, oh, don't I smell nice with this on? And you didn't realize how heavy it was, because once I started working with essential oils, I got allergic to them. And the reason I figured that out is that I go to a restaurant or something, and I remember this once going to a restaurant, and a lady was sat at the next table, and she was doused in this perfume, totally doused in it, because it hit my nose the minute that she walked in. And then I started sitting there and I started getting nauseous and a headache. And it was simply because she was doused in this perfume. And it's really difficult to tell people, hey, you don't actually smell like It's like, and it's really affecting you around you. For botanical fragrances that I make, the common complaint people make about botanical fragrances is that they don't last long. I can't smell it after an hour or something. Well, that's the whole point. You put it on for you, not for everybody around you. And yes, it's not going to last long. These are natural ingredients, but that's the whole point. You maybe don't want to smell like that all day, or you can put a little bit more on, but you don't want the whole room smelling like you. It's a very personal thing making botanical fragrances. So that's the differences that I wanted to talk about, and the synthetic impact there as well.
And there's something called scent adaptation. And so when you're using your aromatherapy for you, you've created your own botanical perfume, or you're getting one of Sharon's beautiful creations. You're using a pure scent. When you're smelling that, and say that you have it in a necklace diffuser, you've actually applied it on, there's the scent adaptation where you're not going to smell it as much anymore, but you're a walking diffuser. So when you come into contact, because I think this is the mindset people have, I want people to smell me. Now, I'm hoping that people aren't thinking, oh, I want people to smell me for days. You don't want to be walking like, oh my, I don't want to smell you. If you've been in that store 2 days ago and I walk in, I should not be able to smell you. And there's a lot of people, like you said, are dousing themselves. When you're doing that, you're hurting your body. You're hurting your fluid and your circulatory systems in your body, which is affecting your mood and your mindset long term. And so you may adapt to that scent, but when somebody new walks in and you have that scent on, they're going to smell that scent. So don't think that, oh, I have to douse myself and I have to load up and pour it on me in order for the other person to smell it. Let me assure you, they're going to smell it. Your scent molecules are going to go into your receptor sites and they're going to fill up those parking spots, and you're not going to smell it as much, but you will continue to get the effect that those oils are providing you for hours. The new person walking in is going to smell you. And that's why using these functional fragrances, these botanicals, not the synthetics, but pure essential oils, is going to be really important, even using the botanical extracts and tinctures that often go into the functional perfumes as well.
Yeah, and I want to also add that a perfume, a botanical fragrance, is going to smell different on you as to somebody else. It can skew a little bit different because of everybody's skin is different. It also smells a little bit different if you put it on a scent strip to your own skin, because it adapts to that. I want to tell you, I may have mentioned this story before in one of the other podcasts. I can't remember, but anyway, I'm going to tell it again. Talking about smelling things, and you run about your scent molecules and your nose adapting. At the last aromatherapy, now aromatherapy conference, I think I spilled a little bit of neroli. Of course, it was an expensive oil in my purse. And I remember for a couple of days afterwards, every time someone walked down the corridor, they were like, "Can you smell neroli?" And it was me. And people could still smell that, even though I couldn't smell it anymore. People could still smell a neroli around here. And yeah, so it was floating around, well, probably in my purse, that smelled of neroli for the entire conference. I had got, so I couldn't smell it anymore, but other people could smell it. And it wasn't a lot. So it just shows you a little bit can go a long way with that.
And that shows the layering effect. Like if you were to have neroli by itself, but if you were to pair that with an orange or a lighter oil, a top note, it's going to soften it. But if you pair it with a tree oil, if you were to bring in cedar wood or even bring in like a frankincense or galbanum, it's going to hold on to that. Any of your root oils or your stronger base oils, they're going to hold on to that scent longer. So when you're blending, those are the things you want to think about. Do you want it light and airy and fluffy? Then you want to go with your top and middle notes. But if you want it to have more staying power, then the trick is, or the hack is, to add in some base notes to that to ground it, to give it roots so that it holds a little bit longer. And you can still have the other top notes as your dominating scents, but you still need to have those roots, right, Sharon?
That's correct. Yeah, I was going to mention that. It depended on what kind of fragrance that you want. If it's base note heavy, it's going to last longer. Whereas with if something like an eau de cologne, which is more like top note heavy, it's going to not last as long. But just because the volatility rate is, top notes are what you usually smell first in a perfume. It's the first thing that's you're going to hit your nose, but they dissipate very quickly, sometimes within minutes. Then you've got your middle notes that hang around for longer. They can maybe last for a few hours. And then your base notes, they're going to last the longest. In one of my perfumes, the very first one I made, the Brown Eyed Brooks, you can even smell that on the scent strip the following day. But it's the base notes that are hanging into there. Your top notes have dissipated. So in a way, botanical fragrances are layered as well in the way that you're smelling them, because the first thing that's going to hit your nose is the top note, and then your middle notes, and then your base notes. So if you want, my winter fragrances are usually base note heavy because it's something warm and nourishing for winter. So that's going to be a lot heavier, whereas my spring and summer fragrances are going to be packed more full of top notes, citrus notes, and other notes as well. So they're not going to hang around as long. And it also depends on how much of each ones that you put in. You could put a lot more top notes in to make those top notes be more dominant, or you could, put less base notes in, more base notes in. Your middle notes is what holds everything together. Now, in my fragrances, I'm tending to work with alcohol, and that's another total game changer to aromatherapy. In aromatherapy, we tend to work with oils, which you can still do, but working with oils and working with alcohol totally changes how these notes interact with each other and how these different essences act with each other. With alcohols, you've got to age the fragrance for a minimum of 4 weeks. What happens is when you first, this is why it's so difficult to make, because when you first smell it, you're trying to write down what you want to do and put in what you want to do and tweak it, and you think, oh, that smells nice. Then 4 weeks later, it can smell totally different. It may smell, hopefully it's going to smell nicer, but in some cases it's like, no, that really wasn't what it was going for. There was a lot of tweaking going on to get it, to skew the way you want to go. Whereas if you're working with a base oil, the two most common ones are jojoba or fractionated coconut oil for perfumes, you pretty much can figure it out straight away. They're not going to change much. So as aromatherapists, I think that's why we work with those, because we know what it's going to smell like when we don't have the long waiting process. Plus, the carrier oil base has got therapeutic properties within it as well. But working with alcohols has been very interesting for me as an aromatherapist. I was not really into it at first. I was like, working with alcohols, oh, I don't know about this. And now I'm a total fan, because it really, really helps change the fragrance and helps hold the fragrance. And just what Jennifer mentioned before, and that what I was going to mention, I remembered what I was going to say now. When you mentioned tinctures, working with a tincture base in fragrances, that can help prolong the life of the notes as well. There's all these different things coming into play and how they interact with each other. So that's to addition of what you were saying, Jennifer, about the layering process, where it could be 2 notes of this, 2 drops of this, and 1 drop of this. That can change it. There's all these other factors coming in as well. So yeah, it really is art and science at play.
And think about when you're blending, you all know that I think essential oils are like people. They all have their own personality. And so if you're taking a geranium and you're pairing that with lavender, they're both flowers, they're both harmonizers and balancers. They're going to have a lot of similarities. Just think about somebody in your life that you're like, oh my gosh, they're, my sister from another mother, or, their family, and you have a lot of the same ideas and a lot of the same beliefs and a lot of the same values. And you could talk for hours because you're so similar with things. You just really get that other person. That's the same in fragrances when you're pairing and layering scent. But think about, so you have geranium and you have lavender together, but then geranium or ginger walks in, and ginger is very spicy. It's a little hot. It's got a whole set. It's a very different personality. It's not as bold and extroverted as peppermint type, but close to it. So if you put peppermint and ginger, and then you have a very gentle introvert walk up, they're going to stay introverted in that conversation. So it's really important when you're pairing the scents together to know what is it that you're going with and how are you going to stabilize them together? What's going to be the common thread and the ring that's going to hold them together? And I think, Sharon, knowing you and following the work that you do, that's something you're very gifted at, is making sure that there's unity among all of them. And it really does come down to the pairing and having just the right formulation. And I know when I do the emotional healing blends, I follow a lot of that of like, okay, how am I going to balance somebody's personality? How am I going to help them be the person that I know they can be, that they want to be, that they're meant to be, and get out of this failed state of not being their full potential in having these ruminating thoughts and emotions and so forth? How do we find that balance? We take that a step further by blending them in different proportions. So when I was talking about on day 1, we have a certain pair together. On day 2, we have a certain pair together. Think about if lavender and geranium are people and they represent 2 people in your life, yourself and somebody else who were a lot alike. Imagine if you guys were left in a room for 24 hours and you could have this conversation. And you're just talking and talking and talking. And then the next day, if ginger came in by itself, it changes the dynamics because you've already built this bond. So each day you're building different bonds. So that's why on the next day, the second day, I'm going to be very strategic in the blending of, all right, maybe I am going to put ginger and peppermint together because I know together their commonality, they are focusing on a specific purpose. Right? Because we can blend by purpose. We can blend by fragrance. We can blend based on different emotions. There's a number of traits that you could follow that way. But if I put those 2 together, now I have these 2 paired with these 2. Now they're going to come in and they're going to marry. And then this team of 4 now marries. And then on day 3, I can bring in another formula. But when I blend, I'm thinking about, okay, this blend is to help somebody grab their footing, to stay grounded. This particular blend on day 2 is going to help them really own their power, own their strength. And then on day 3, we're going to kick anxiety and nervousness and self-doubt and self-belief issues. We're going to kick that to the curb and lead with courage and confidence. And I think part of being an intuitive blender, we just do that naturally. But as you're blending, as you're listening to us going, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Yes, it is crazy. And that's why we love it so much. And that's why we're so passionate about bringing you and helping you understand these purposes behind and the functionality. When you use scent and fragrances as a function, the power of healing that you're going to get is so amazing. Whether you're doing it in a perfume, whether you're doing it in a room spray, in a personal custom blend, I think it's all really important. And that's what we wanted to bring you, just to get you thinking, a different way of thinking and seeing functional scent, seeing the function of fragrance. How can that work for you? What is it that you need? And how can you fill that space for mind and for body. I think the perfumes, the fragrance line that you've created, Sharon, does that. You're kind of tapping into this different sides of who we are within the different seasons. And I love that.
Thank you, Jennifer. I mean, yeah, it's been a journey for me. I've been introducing aromatherapists to the kind of more the creative side of creating fragrances together, botanical fragrances. And just a little bit of background to my botanical fragrances. Fragrances tell a story. I'm also a writer, so these are my two passions together, writing and fragrance. So when you're creating a fragrance, not necessarily from a therapeutic point of view, but it's still got therapeutic properties. You're like, okay, so what do I want this fragrance to reflect? Well, my first kind of set of 5 that I'm doing all kind of relate to leading Hollywood ladies, which they all represent strong resilience. Back in the day when the movies are great, like the big Hollywood stars. So I've done 1920s, 1930s, I think 1940s and 1950s. I think that's what I'm covering. I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head. But so I take, for example, the first one I created was an ode to Louise Brooks, who some people may not have heard of her, but she was a pretty famous 1920s movie star. And so I sat down and I knew a little bit about her history and read a little bit about her. What do I want her to, how can I create her in a fragrance? And you can do this with a friend as well or yourself. What are the qualities that I want to bring out in this? So with her, it was kind of bold and confident and a little bit of sass in there. So, sass to me is spicy a little bit in there. So I kind of thought about all the different ones that I could bring together and let them mold together to create these properties and these feelings, as it were. Now, for some people, they might think, oh, well, I'm not really getting that, but I'm hoping people are getting it from the way that I've created it. So I've put in a little bit of spiciness in that one. For my second one, and I have a whole podcast on this. I also have a blog on this on Substack called Stories of Scent that I go into this a lot more detail with paid subscribers. I'll put that link below as well in the comments so people can check that out. But for my second one I created was an ode to Audrey Hepburn, and I saw her as more of a light and fun and flirty. That was the tagline for that. And so for me, citruses represented that. So I've got some citruses in there, but I've also got some florals. And it was specifically for Audrey Hepburn. It was to the movie Breakfast at Tiffany's. So if anybody's watched Breakfast at Tiffany's, it's the character she plays in that, which was fun and fab and flirty. I think that was my tagline. So you've also got to be a little bit of a writer as well to get all that together for fragrances. But to finish off on that, so with that one, it was light and fragrance, but it also made you, buying that, made you boosted your confidence and feel a bit of light and fun. And that's how I put it together. Whereas my winter ones go a little bit more inward, a bit more reflection. And yeah, so all my scents tell a story.
I love it because that's what the fragrance should do. It should capture us in a bottle in a personal blend. But when we're choosing a functional fragrance, we want to channel some different air about us. We want to channel confidence. When you set goals and you set intentions, you need to act as if you already have it. And what I love about the scent profiles and the scent stories, because I've read all of the different stories, and you take us on this journey. It's like a documentary. It's a scent documentary, if you will. It's more than just the words, it's the feelings. It's capturing the feeling of the personality and of the character and really exuding and leading yourself that way. The strong, confident, bold, sassy, fun, flirty. You're elevating that within you, and you're able to channel that and using the scent as a medium to help you channel that energy, I think is so beautiful. And again, that's another part of the functional fragrances benefits, is that you're able to channel your confidence. You're able to lead and know that you are worthy and you have self-worth and you're amazing and you are talented. Sometimes you just need to be reminded of that. And you were reminded by feeling it. And scent is the quickest, fastest, and most insightful and depth driven way to do that. Because when you smell it, it's like love. You can't see it, but you can feel it. The scent activates that part within you so strongly and so quickly that it can shift your mood very quickly.
Yeah, it's elevating your mood and your well-being. So you might think, oh, I don't know if I'm that confident today. It's like, this fragrance is for you today then, because you're going to feel confident and you're going to channel your inner Louise Brooks, or whoever it's going to be that day. And yeah, just make you feel special and make you amplify those qualities that are in there anyway, that we all have. Yeah, and write your own scent story. That's what I say. Everybody's got to write their own scent story. I know these big perfume companies with the synthetics try and sell you on that, and when you see the big perfume ads on TV, especially at Christmas time. But as Jennifer explained before, some of these are actually making you not feeling so good, because they're not using the natural scientific properties of the therapeutic properties of the plants that we know and love as aromatherapists. We know that these are doing this. It's not just a psychological thing. They actually are beneficial for that as well.
Yeah. And for those of us who are very sensitive to that, I mean, I too used to love perfumes. There were certain ones, I can't remember what they are at the time because it was so long ago. But
Yeah.
there were ones through college that I loved, but it became a health choice for me. I had to be more health conscious. And I had to choose differently and choose wisely, and using holistic scents are great for those who are sensitive, but also who just don't want the chemical part of that. And again, we're not saying we don't want to bash anybody. I mean, there's enough room for everybody to play. We just want you to be educated. For me, it's an education thing of, I cannot use those. I need a healthy alternative. I have to have another way. And why not have my scent as a perfume, as a deodorant, as a whole body fragrance, and get a psychological benefit from that, and boost my mood and boost my confidence and make me feel amazing and make me feel great. Like I know I can accomplish anything today. That's the power behind it. And when you use these pure scents from nature, that's the power of the plant. It's the power of the scent, the fragrance that we're getting from those plants, and putting them together. You're going to get more benefit, these multitasking benefits, if you will. But the power of the fragrance and holistic fragrance can really help you not just smell good, but also physiologically and psychologically. And for those who need those with high sensitivities, here's your natural alternative, and understanding the why behind it, and how do you get them and how do you choose. That's what this episode was for, is to give you that insight that we had and how we have arrived at the place where we are in our health journey and our business journey, really, in helping others holistically, especially navigating through healthier scent.
Yeah, and I mean, although I create these particular fragrances as aromatherapists, we're also well aware we can make custom blends. So if there's something that doesn't work for you in the standard fragrances that I've made, for example, I can work with you one-on-one, and the same as an aromatherapist, we can work with you one-on-one to create something for you, like Jennifer does with her intuitive blending. It's specifically for you, what specifically you need at that time. And just because it might work for somebody else, it might not work for you where you are at that point in your life and your journey. Or you might need something different at one point to where you are with something else. So that's why I love working with scents, because there's so many different combinations you can choose from and use, and so many different plants. And as we said, you pair them differently with each other. And I know from experience, from just making fragrances, one drop of some fragrance, some essences, essential oils, absolutes, whatever you're using, just one can alter the entire fragrance. I guess it can alter it energetically as well as emotionally, and make how it makes you feel physically. So yeah, that's what makes it a lifelong journey studying these scents, because there's so many different options to work with.
I love that we're able to custom blend, because you're not meant to have the same scent forever. It's nice that we can choose for the season of life that we're in. Maybe in this season, I need a particular blend, and that blend is going to help me work through the layers of healing that I'm in right now. And once I've worked through that, that scent may not smell the same to you. And you're going to go, it doesn't really light me up the way I used to. Great. That means you've shifted and you're now ready for the next signature blend. Your next, it's like Sharon 2.0, Sharon 3.0, Sharon 4.0. We're constantly evolving like a clock. We should never be stuck in one area. And having your scent represent who you are in this phase of your life or this season of your life, whether it's short term or long term, is so profound. And it's another way to self-care and self-love yourself a little bit every day. It's so easy. You're already going to be using a deodorant or perfume or body something. Why not have it be functional for you and have the scents and the fragrance work for you, bringing you balance, bringing you harmony, bringing you wholeness. So thank you so much for joining us on this episode. And Sharon, I am so excited for your upcoming fragrance, because they're all amazing. And I do feel like a different person every time. Like with each one, it like taps into another alter ego within me. And I love it. I love it. It's just a great feeling to know, yes, in all of these faces, I feel strong and confident and authentic.
Thank you. Yeah, going into the spring season, it's going to be something different again. If anybody's interested in my botanical fragrances, I'll also drop the link below. This would be the fourth one. The fifth one will be released in the fall. And I'm going to have some special sets, just a plug here for the NAHA Aromatherapy Conference, but that's where I'm going to have the initial, you can buy you could sample the whole sample sets of them. So you can try each of my fragrant ladies. There'll be 5 fragrant ladies in the first full collection. And so you can try your different moods. If you're feeling moody, silent, sassy, smart, whatever you want to be, you can try all the different ones. I'm also very excited every time somebody buys one, because it's getting the word out, botanical fragrances, and trying different ones, making people feel happy and healthy. I could talk about fragrances all day, but as you say, there's more on my stories of scent that I mentioned before. And I'm also very intrigued. I love your intuitive blending and the way that you do layered blends, Jennifer. I think that's a great way of working with it. And it's also something that could be turned into botanical fragrances as well. It's just all beautiful, all these different ways we can work with them.
Yeah. And for those of you that are intrigued, or you want your own custom blend based on emotional healing or an intuitive reading, I'll put the link below. And for others who are looking to, hey, how do I incorporate this into the work that I do and bring in this layered effect and really dive deeper into the emotional healing aspect and bring that layer into my current practice, I'll also put the school and the link to the Aromatherapy Intuitive certification program and the clinical program as well, to give you more training. So we want to thank you so much for joining us, for supporting us, being on this fragrant journey with us, and we cannot wait to see you next time. And our next episode is going to be on how scent can guide you through your detox, through a mindset detox. And we're going to call this our scent cleansing, clearing your space inside and out. How can you clear the negative energy around you, the negative mindset blocks, emotional blocks inside and outside? So that's going to come up on our next episode. Thank you so much for joining us, Sharon. I'll see you next time.
I'll see you next time, Jennifer. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Wow, what an incredible and inspiring Aroma Paths podcast episode. Thank you for joining us. We are your scentcasters, Sharon Falsetto Chapman and Jennifer Pressimone. Please like this episode and subscribe to our channel to follow us on more Aroma Paths adventures.
Aroma Paths stepping fresh through the mist. Essential oils lifting vibes, feel the twist.